What is going on, everyone? My name is Travis Fonderson, founding director of the Young Funds program. And if you can't already tell by the excitement in my voice, I'm super excited as today we are releasing our first piece of video content. This is going to actually be how we sort of try and get across the rest of our content pieces, whether it be on-screen video or in-person, or sorry, on-face camera video, whatever you want to call it. But guys, I'm so ready to get into this. Hope you guys join us on our journey. Make sure to like us and on our Facebook page. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn. All that good stuff that's going to be in the description below. But without further ado, let's get to chapter 2, the opportunity cost of only saving your money. Alright guys, so here we go. Let's get started. Today what I want to actually talk about is the purpose of actually investing your money and why anyone should actually be investing their money. What is the purpose of investing, and what benefit does it sort of give you? That's what the underlying topic of what today is. So to start out, point one, right? Point one is going to ask the question, why invest? Why invest at all? So to actually understand why, people invest, you must first understand the objective of investing, and you must first understand what investing actually is. And I'm talking here about stock market investing, those types of investments. Now, investing is basically the act of actually acquiring assets, right? Acquiring assets in the belief that they will appreciate in value, and so that you can sell them at a future date at a profit, essentially. That's why people invest, and that is the objective of investing. This is simply because people want to, or the rational person wants to grow their wealth over time. Like, that's why people actually start investing, to grow their wealth over time. They have a sum of money that they want to put into an investment and yield return on that investment over time, so that they can become wealthier and have more money. Now, to answer the question of why people should actually be investing at all, I have two sort of views to go about that. I call it the practical view, and then I call the other one the technical view. Right. Now, first I want to sort of talk about the practical view. Now, the average person, and if I remember correctly, it's like over 90%, even maybe 95%, I saw in the presentation somewhere, are employees. They're people who work for other people and essentially trade their time and their effort for income, for funding, right? And they usually just only have that one source of income, supplementing their lives and giving them the money that they need for personal expenses, right? So once that person actually works and trades their effort and their work for funding, that funding comes into their accounts. It's an inflow for them, right? The next place where that money will go will actually outflow to pay, household expenses, necessities such as housing, things such as food, things such as water, clothing, leisure expenses, all those kinds of things, right? And the money that's left after, they get paid, and then after they expense all their lifestyle expenses, the money that's left over, again, a rational person would put into their savings account, because they don't need it for anything further. So they put it in a place for safekeeping, and in the case that they'll ever need that money, it's there sitting in their savings account for them to use, right? Now, where the practical view of why you should invest sort of comes in is with this question. If there's an opportunity out there, right, to have your idly sitting money grow legitimately with you not even putting in any effort, you just holding an investment or putting your money in the market and letting it grow over time, if there's an opportunity to do that, why would you not take it, right? You have two options when you get money, right? The way, maybe three, the way I see it. You can either get that money and spend it right back. You can get that money, or by spending I mean you can donate. You can basically put that money back out into something, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be spending. It could be whatever else, but you can basically get that money to put it out into some type of action, right? Or you can hold that money, right, and in a savings account, right, where it will idly sit and be there for safekeeping, or you can invest that money. Sorry for that pause there. But yeah, those are the three options. You can basically get that money, expend it somewhere, you can get that money, you can hold it as savings, or the third option is you can get that money and you can invest it to create and yield a return for you over time. Now, the way I look at it is, if you have money idly sitting in a savings account anyways, and what you need to understand is that, yes, savings accounts do provide you interest on the money that's sitting there, but we're in very low interest time periods just due to the way that the economy is working. Bank savings accounts barely pay anything these days, and you really need to understand that why to know why you should be investing your money. So honestly, it's basically like your money is getting no return, and really it's like getting negative return, but I'll talk about that later. But nothing's happening with your money if you just have it sitting in a savings account. That's the one thing I want you to understand. Now, with investing, right, there's so many investment opportunities out there that give you that can give you on average 5 to 10%, and that's being like a conservative amount. If you're talking about like the index funds that group together, you know, the biggest companies in different countries, like for example the S&P 500 index, that's yielding much more than any type of return your bank savings account will actually give to you. So the practical view that I sort of see with that is, if you have the opportunity to be growing your money over time, as opposed to having your money idly sit in a savings account, is what I call it, doing nothing, you know, which opportunity will the rational person take? Obviously, you're going to take the investing opportunity, right? It's just that so many people feel that investing is a really, you know, complex topic, and it's really intimidating. And that's why I feel the majority of people don't actually invest, and they don't look into these, you know, financial opportunities that could provide them a huge benefit down the road, right? So that's the practical view that I sort of see of investing. Would you rather have your money idly sit doing nothing, or would you take the opportunity to actually have your money legitimately just sit in an investment that's working for you, have your money working for you, and in this case you're not necessarily you know, exchanging your effort or your time for income. This is something that we call passive income, something we call residual income. And as soon as you start creating multiple sources of income, that's when you will see your wealth begin to accumulate and increase more than you've ever seen it do before, right? So that's the practical view. The next view that I want to talk about, and this is where it gets a little bit more well, technical, but I was looking for another word, but I couldn't. But it gets more sophisticated, I guess you could say, right? As I talked about before, having your money in safekeeping or in a savings account or under your mattress, whatever you want to call it, it actually hurts your financial situation. This is where before, when I was talking about how having your money sit in a bank savings account almost provides you negative return, this is my theory on that. So if you just have your money sitting in a savings account, there's risk of you losing your purchasing power. And to be honest, I shouldn't even call it risk. You are most definitely over time losing purchasing power if you just actually have your money sitting in a bank savings account, getting you pennies on the dollar return. Now, purchasing power, I will be talking about that definition further in the video, but it's basically your ability to buy goods and services with the wealth that you have. And the reason that I'm saying that this actually gets depreciated and devalued as time goes by is because of something that we call inflation. And again, later in the video, I will be giving you a better definition of inflation, but to give you, long story short, inflation is the general increase in prices of goods over a specific time period. And inflation is something that is always there, as it is an economic metric that the policy setters and the central banks actually do set out to have for an economy. Now, good policy setters and good central banks will aim to have low and steady inflation, but Nonetheless, it is something that is always there. So I guess my point with that is that inflation is something that will always be there. Therefore, there will always be a factor counteracting your money sitting in a bank savings account and actually causing your purchasing power to decrease over time. So what I sort of want to take to you guys now is a little bit more of a deep dive on inflation and purchasing power, and actually I'll show you guys a model of how purchasing power actually gets devalued over time due to the effects of inflation. So yeah, let's head to my laptop. All right, so here we are. We're back on my laptop here. So why does inflation matter to us? In order to answer that question, we actually need to first understand what exactly inflation is. So I've brought us to this website. It's called investopedia.com. Highly recommend this site, by the way. If you're ever looking to just gain some business knowledge, you can basically search up whatever business term that you want to in here, and it will give you a full analysis on it along with these videos that are very useful. But I really just want to focus on this first paragraph right here. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. Consequently, the purchasing power of currency is falling. So we did touch on purchasing power a little bit earlier on in the video, but you can see how inflation and purchasing power have this inverse relationship. Inflation increases, purchasing power decreases. So now that you guys have a good basis on that, if you would like a little bit more background on it, feel free. I can put this link in the description of the video, but feel free to come and just look at this description. It'll fully explain to you what I'm trying to get at with inflation and purchasing power here. Now that we know what inflation rate is, I sort of want to show you the projections for inflation in Canada and the US, as well as some of the history, to show you guys, to actually verify what I'm sort of saying here. So the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve, basically any central bank in an economy, actually has a target inflation rate, because inflation isn't completely unhealthy. We do want to see a low, steady inflation rate year over year, as this does show economic growth. So, and this is the Canadian coming from tradingeconomics.com. You can see what I want you to focus on is this graph here. So this y-axis is basically showing the inflation rate, right? And this x-axis is showing time in years. So you can see there was major deflation in 2008, right, due to the financial crisis, but then it began to stabilize. And now, if we're looking from about 2014 to 2018 range, we can see we're in about the 1 to 3 range, which is the target inflation rate for the Bank of Canada. So my main point with this is inflation is something that will always be there as the central bank seeks, or actually sets out to have these target inflation rates. So there will always be a rate at which your purchasing power is getting devalued, is essentially what I'm trying to say and what I'm showing to you here. So in the model that I'll be showing you guys a little bit later in this video, I use an inflation rate of 2%, and I just sort of wanted to show you guys this to sort of verify what I'm talking about here, and just prove that I'm not babbling on. But you can even see that you know, the estimated inflation rate coming in 2018 is around 2%. The last one was before Q1 of 2018 was about 1.9%. Now, let me show you US as well, because the Federal Reserve is their target rate is about the same as well. So you can see in the past it's been 1.6, went up to 3.14, very low in 2015, but in the time now, 2016 to 2022, you can easily see that the rate has higher than 2% in every case. So I'm even being a little bit conservative with the rate I'm taking of 2% in the inflation rate model that I'll have coming up in the video just a bit. So if you guys do want to come back to this link to sort of see how inflation has acted in the past, or how it will act in the future based on these targets forecasts, you can come to this link. I'll have it again in the description. But what I sort of want to take to you guys now is going back to the question of, why does the inflation rate actually matter to us? Now, to show that, I'm going to show you guys a model that I came up with here.
Okay, so this is what the model looks like. Sorry, this isn't the model. This is actually just a chart that charts the model, but I wanted to show you guys this visual first. Um, in the orangish line is representing someone who has their money invested in a portfolio that's giving them 5% return. The y-axis basically shows their purchasing power in units of good A, which will make more sense when I show you the model. And then the x-axis is actually the time in years. So it's basically saying how purchasing power changes over time for a person who does not actively invest, but invest their money, and for someone who just lets their money sit in the bank account doing nothing with it, idly sitting, as I like to call it. So yes, the orange line is representing the person with the portfolio who is getting 5% return year over year, and the blue line represents someone who is actually not investing and just simply leaving their money in a bank savings account. Now you can obviously see who is more well off at the end of the 20 years. I decided to use a 20-year model, but really it can be any time period, because inflation, as I said before, is always there. Now I'll show you how I actually got these trends. I'll just dive into it a little bit more, a little briefly, just for those of you who may not be as familiar with these terms. But this is the model that I have set up here, and I'll just run through it really quickly. If you already understand each of the columns here, you can just skip ahead in the video, but for those that don't, I'm just going to go through each column specifically and say what's happening with it. So in the year column, this is obviously just representing the time period. So this is year 1, this is year 8, year 9, and this is straightforward. Basically, we're looking at how things are changing over time. So that's what this year column is representing. This non-investor account is basically representing the amount of money that person A is using. And I just put in an arbitrary 10K, saying if someone had 10K in their bank account, it stays constant throughout all 20 years, right? Because obviously they're not investing it, so it's staying the exact same per bank statement. Now this next column actually represents the investor's portfolio, so someone who is investing their 10K. So obviously I do start them out with, sorry about that, I do start them out with 10K each, because it needs to be fair. But you can see what's different with the investor's portfolio is that they're actually growing their money year over year. So I decided to use a conservative amount of 5%. If we were to look at a lot of the index year over year gains, so by index I mean S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P TSX, Russell 2000, things such as that, which basically pool together, like for example the S&P 500, the biggest 500 companies in the United States, and they have an index for that, right? So that index is even growing by, on average, more than 5% year over year. So I'm really using a conservative 5% here. But as you can see, it is growing. It is growing year over year. We start with 10K, and by the end of the model, we're at 25K, giving us 152, 153% return. But at the end of the day, now in the next column, we do need something to reflect our inflation. So I just made an arbitrary good A here, and that is, the price of it is increasing. I'm doing a conservative 2% year over year. Right, as you can see in the formula there, I'm basically just growing it by 2% every single year. So by the end of the model, it has grown by 45.68%, as you can see there. Now that's what that column is representing. In the next column, we have purchasing power in units of good A. As I stated before, that's how purchasing power is represented. The number of goods and services you can buy with the amount of wealth you have today. That's what purchasing power is. So that's how I've represented it here. To get these numbers, I'm basically just saying, I'll briefly show you the formula here, but I'm basically just saying we're looking at the non-investor account, right? So the 10K, and I'm dividing that by the current price of good A, which is $100. So I'm basically saying, with the amount of money I have, how many of good A can I purchase? So it's just simple division equation, and that gives us 100 here. But by the end of the model, we do have 68.64 units of good A. So you can see how the purchasing power has majorly decreased as a result of this guy here, as a result of the inflation. Oops, sorry about that. My bad. Let's get back up there. Come on now. There we go. So if we look on the other hand with the purchasing power for the person who's actually investing, we can see that their purchasing power is actually increasing year over year. I'm using that 5% rate, and we're using a conservative 2% rate for inflation. So you can see it's growing at about approximately 3% each year. You know, it goes from 100 to 102.9 to 105.9 to 109. So it's growing by about 3%, and then it even starts to exponentially grow slightly here. So you can see with the 145 to 150, that is, you know, 5. That's a change of 5, then a change of 5 around there, or 4-ish. So you can just see that it's the difference between the actual return that you're getting and the inflation that you're getting. So the difference between these two, you know, obviously is 3%. So it's almost like we're making a net return of 3% year over year with our purchasing power, which is what you can see here. The last column that I have here is just showing basically how much better off this guy is than this guy in each year. So in the first year, obviously they start off the same, but in the next year, this guy is 5% greater than this guy. And in the next year, this guy is 10.25% greater than this guy. And in the final year, this guy is 152.7% greater than this guy in terms of their purchasing power, right? Simply because the investor chose to start investing his money for the long term, and you know, it showed, right? Because now he had something to counteract his inflation, or to counteract the inflation that was devaluing his money, and he was able to now not only make return on his money, right, but actually be able to buy or to have greater purchasing power than he did when he started. So it's not even like he's just maintaining his purchasing power. He's or she, my bad, is increasing his purchasing power, his or her purchasing power. So that is what I'm trying to get across with this model right here. That's what I'm doing with each case, and the biggest point I wanted to get across was the fact that your purchasing power is getting depreciated every single year. This guy is not having, I'm even gonna highlight him with red. He's not having a good time because, you know, his purchasing power is getting devalued. So relatively, you're losing money, is a way to say it, by just having your money in a savings account. As ironic as that sounds, by doing nothing with your money, you're actually putting yourself in a worse situation. Now, that is the general basis of what I wanted to get across to you guys with this segment right here. I was talking about why you should be investing. So the bottom line is why anyone should really invest, from both a practical and technical point of view, is simply because they're putting themselves in a better position than they would otherwise be if they just had their money sitting in a savings account. And the thing is, it's not like you're trading time, like much time or much effort, as you would be with a traditional, you know, job, right? Where you're trading your time and your effort for income. You're legitimately getting income for not doing anything. So you're making money while you sleep. You're making money while you eat, while you drink, while you take care of your kids, while you go on vacation. So long as you keep your money invested in something that has a growing rate. And I mean, if you guys would like to sort of get a bit of background on where you can find funds such as these, be sure to just leave a comment or reach out to us via our our website. We have all our contact information there, and we'd be happy to direct you to some sites that you can use.
All right, guys. So that was the gist of what I wanted to get across with this video. The bottom line is that I say one should most definitely be taking hold of their investment opportunities simply because it makes them so much more better off than they otherwise would be if they just had their money sitting in a bank savings account idly doing nothing. So guys, that's all I had for you today. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please share this video. This is a movement that we're trying to get out there and we're really trying to expose, because personally I think every single person who has the opportunity to be investing should not be overlooking this great financial opportunity. Again, this has been chapter 2 of the Young Funds program, the opportunity cost of only saving your money. I really hope you liked the video, but be sure to like, share, subscribe. All that stuff is in the description, guys. Until the next video, has been Travis Fonderson. Carpe diem and be blessed.